Have you ever felt like life was pushing you down a path that wasn't yours? Maybe everyone around you told you to settle, accept the destiny you were handed, and stop dreaming so big. But what if I told you that the biggest mistake of your life could actually be not taking a risk? What if that crazy decision to leave everything behind was, in fact, your only real shot at happiness? Today, I'm going to share the story of someone who had the courage to abandon comfort, face their fears, and take a leap into the unknown, even without any guarantee that it would all work out. Get ready, because after this video, you just might feel the urge to change your own destiny too. Since childhood, he felt a huge desire to achieve something greater, to leave his mark on the world. His eyes sparkled when he imagined distant places, bold careers, a life full of possibilities, the kind that seemed to exist only in movies. But reality always knocked on the door too soon. His humble family, facing daily struggles, fought to survive. Every achievement was hard-won, and dreaming seemed like a luxury, almost out of reach. Even so, his imagination was a safe haven from daily limitations. When he wasn't helping at home, he'd spend hours inventing stories or sketching plans in an old notebook. It was there, hidden from adult eyes, that the seeds of transformation and overcoming were planted. How many times did he daydream, seeing himself in situations that seemed impossible for a boy from a forgotten neighborhood? But the weight of hardship was real, and options always seemed limited. With every new challenge, the pressure to grow up too fast also grew. Conversations at home always revolve around problems, bills, and worries. In this environment, dreams felt even further away, but somehow they never disappeared completely. Early on, he learned that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it's just about quietly holding on to your dreams. Over time, even his own family, wanting only the best, began to discourage his ideas. Not out of malice, but out of fear he'd suffered disappointment. They'd say things like, "That's not for people like us," or "Life is tough, take what you can get." Still, each word like that only fueled his desire for change. Every no he heard became another seed of courage to try something different one day. Deep down, he knew life was about choices, even when it seemed others had already decided for him. Financial limits, lack of opportunity, and a tough environment were real obstacles, but also valuable lessons. He learned that to change his own destiny, he'd have to face the challenge of believing and never letting go of his dream, no matter how unlikely it seemed. And so quietly, his transformation began. As he left adolescence, he quickly realized the world wasn't waiting for his dreams with open arms. The start of adult life brought a flood of responsibilities and expectations. Family expected maturity, society demanded results, and school was no longer enough. He needed to work, help at home, be useful. Decisions came one after another, always following tracks laid down by generations before him. Friends followed safer paths, civil service exams, steady jobs, careers inherited from family. Every time he thought about breaking the mold, he felt the weight of judgment. Why would you risk it? Lingered in looks and sometimes words. The pressure to fit in was suffocating, a trap that slowly strangled any real chance for change. Often, he wondered if he was making choices or just fulfilling others' expectations. Important decisions, college, work, relationships, always seemed tainted by the fear of letting someone down. It was a constant tug of war between the fear of disappointing others and the courage to write his own story. Deep inside, he felt like he was living someone else's destiny. The hardest part was feeling different in a world that valued conformity. Every little attempt to try something new was quickly pruned, either by direct criticism or subtle remarks. He realized that, to survive emotionally, it was easier to silence his desires and go with the flow. But that internal silence became heavier than any outside pressure, fueling a restlessness he couldn't ignore. Yet glimmers of hope remained. Brief moments of joy while daydreaming, talks with people who thought differently, or even a sudden urge to change everything. These moments were sparks, reminders that transformation is possible, even under enormous social pressure. Adulthood is full of challenges, but also opportunities, and sometimes the next chapter is written when you least expect it. As the years passed, routine became increasingly suffocating. Work, studies, bills, and daily responsibilities formed an almost automatic cycle, draining energy and time. Amidst this whirlwind, that old dream seemed more distant than ever, almost like an echo from the past. Choices were now based on necessity, not the desire for transformation. He noticed that by prioritizing what was urgent, he was leaving what truly mattered for later. Commitments, outside pressures, and fear of failure made time fly, with years passing as if they were days. Sometimes he wondered, is it still possible to change my destiny? But in practice, a fresh start seemed more unlikely every day. With every new challenge, he pushed his personal project aside, saving it for when things get better, when there's extra money, or simply someday. The excuses always sounded reasonable, but only masked the fear and lack of courage to face the consequences of a bold choice. And so, the dream faded, like a flame left burning in the background. Despite everything, moments of nostalgia appeared, memories of the boy who dreamed big, mixed with bittersweet longing for his old self. It hurt to realize how practical life, left unchecked, can bury living dreams. In private talks or sleepless nights, the desire for transformation kept surfacing, even if disguised as worry. No matter how much time passed, the longing for change never died completely. It remained, waiting for an opportunity, a sign, or maybe a push from fate. He went on living just to fulfill obligations, but something inside insisted it wasn't too late to rekindle that spark. The next chapter would begin exactly when he least expected, maybe in the form of unexpected inspiration. In the middle of the daily grind, tiny cracks started to appear in the perfect plan. He noticed that even while doing everything right, an odd emptiness followed him at the end of the day. The smile on his face was often just for show. Inside, dissatisfaction grew silently. It was as if one part of him was screaming for change, while the other insisted on sticking to autopilot. Gradually, doubt seeped into every daily decision. Was this really what I wanted? That question haunted his thoughts during long commutes or work breaks. Small signs of discomfort popped up in everyday situations, like chats with colleagues or moments of fun that no longer brought real joy. What used to be routine now felt like a disguised prison. He felt time slipping by, but the sense of living someone else's life kept growing. Choices made to please family or fulfill others' expectations weighed more each day. It was hard to admit, but the fear of facing the consequences of change still outweighed the courage to try. The challenge was to figure out if this discomfort was just a phase or the start of real transformation. Even when he tried to convince himself that everything was fine, his body sent signals: unusual tiredness, lack of motivation, and even a certain reluctance to plan for the future. Internal conversations became more frequent, with circular thoughts about what could have been. Amidst all the doubt, a glimmer of hope remained, as if something big was about to happen, just waiting for the right moment. Discomfort became a constant companion, but it also became fuel to seek answers. No matter how much he tried to suppress that inner voice, it kept surfacing at the most unexpected times. It was as if life was setting the stage for a turning point, slowly opening the door for an unexpected inspiration. And it was in this context of doubt and dissatisfaction that the story began to take a new turn. When he least expected it, life brought something different. It might have been a casual conversation, an online video, a forgotten book on a shelf, or even the story of someone who made a bold decision. Suddenly, that old spark, almost extinct, flared up again. It was amazing how a simple, seemingly ordinary event could shift his entire perspective. Inspiration crept in quietly, without fanfare, but stirred deep emotions and convictions. It felt like the universe was giving him a nudge, whispering that there was still time to change his destiny. This unexpected influence brought new ideas, courage, and a willingness to finally face the challenge of a different life. His heart raced, and doubts slowly gave way to hope. For the first time in a long while, he found himself daydreaming without fear of judgment. The inspiring story he heard or experienced showed that starting over wasn't just for movies or special people. It was within reach for anyone willing to try. The urge to change grew stronger, and almost naturally, plans began to take shape in his mind, even if timid and full of uncertainty. From that encounter, he began to notice details he'd always missed: hidden opportunities, people willing to help, and signs that it was time to take a chance. Small daily actions like reading more, talking to those who had already blazed a different trail, or just imagining new possibilities fueled this sense of transformation. It was the turning point he'd been searching for. Excitement started to fill the space that once held only doubt and fatigue. There were still obstacles and fears, but now the desire to try was stronger than the urge to settle. Deep down, he knew real change begins in that moment of inspiration, when someone, something, or some special situation reignites the courage to change everything. And in this atmosphere of hope and adrenaline, new internal conflicts were about to rise. With renewed inspiration came fear and uncertainty. His heart raced at the mere thought of the consequences of giving up everything and starting down a new path. He wondered if he truly had enough courage to give up stability, routine, and the familiar. It felt like he was standing at a crossroads, where any choice would bring real challenges and risks. The inner conflict grew day by day. Part of him wanted to move forward without looking back, while another part screamed for caution. Internal voices argued endlessly. What if it goes wrong? What if I regret it? What if I lose everything I've built so far? This silent battle became more intense, fueled by memories of past failures and the fear of the unknown. Often, he sought advice from people he trusted, hoping for support or at least confirmation that he was doing the right thing. But deep down, he knew no one could decide for him. The real challenge was conquering his own insecurities, accepting that mistakes are part of the process, and that transformation, no matter how scary, only happens when you face your fears head-on. The fear of disappointing family, of being judged by friends, or of being seen as irresponsible weighed heavily. Every piece of advice seemed to bring more doubt than certainty. The internal conflict was fueled by his desire for change, but also by his fear of losing everything he'd worked so hard to build. Life, at that moment, felt like a chessboard where every move had to be carefully calculated. Even so, there was a quiet certainty. Nothing would change if he didn't take action. With each passing day, the discomfort of staying the same became greater than the fear of change. And it was in this whirlwind of emotions that the story began preparing for a new chapter, the one where, at last, the decision would be made. The moment arrived when postponing was no longer possible. All the pent-up restlessness, mixed with a desire for change, exploded into a single day that seemed to carry the weight of a lifetime. The decision to give up everything didn't happen in a magical instant, but was the result of countless small internal battles that matured until there was no turning back. Doubt was huge, but the sense of urgency was even greater. That day, everything around him seemed to conspire for an ultimatum. Home felt colder, work more suffocating, and even little details in his routine took on the feel of a farewell. He knew life wouldn't hand him easy answers, and any choice would have consequences. But for the first time, he realized that not deciding was also a choice, perhaps the most dangerous of all. With a pounding heart, he mentally revisited everything he could lose: stability, the few certainties he gained, the respect of loved ones. Even so, something inside screamed for courage, as if life were offering a unique opportunity for transformation. The fear didn't go away, but it was pushed aside in the name of a fresh start. The final decision wasn't shouted from rooftops or celebrated with fireworks. It was quiet, almost intimate, but deeply liberating. He felt the weight of years dissipate, replaced by a mix of fear, relief, and excitement. By choosing to step out of his comfort zone, he knew he'd face new challenges, but he was ready to finally take control of his own destiny. In that moment, he understood that there are no guarantees for those who take risks, but there is a certainty of frustration for those who never try. The decisive day was marked not as an end, but as the true beginning of a new life. And it was only the start of the chain reactions that would unfold from this turning point. Right after making the big decision, he realized people around him would react in very different ways. Some family and friends were shocked, unable to understand how someone could give up a safe life for something so uncertain. There were questions, looks of disapproval, and the classic line, "Are you throwing everything away?" Criticism came disguised as concern, but felt like judgment. Others, though, were surprisingly supportive. People who had once seemed distant now offered encouragement, sharing similar stories or simply lending shoulder. In those moments, he saw how the courage to change also inspires others to rethink their own choices. Genuine support, even if discreet, became fuel for facing the first hardships. On the other hand, others' doubts were almost as big as his own. Friends questioned his motivations, and family worried about his future. The fear of disappointing loved ones was real, but now he knew everyone has their own time to understand bold decisions. It was tough, but necessary, to move forward without expecting full understanding from everyone. Conversations changed tone. Some kept trying to talk him out of it, while others wanted to know every detail of his new path. Some bet on failure, a few genuinely believed in his potential for transformation. This mix of support, criticism, and doubt made him grow even more, learning to filter opinions and value those truly rooting for his happiness. Little by little, he realized that any big decision will always attract critics, doubters, and supporters. The most important thing was to stay true to himself and not let outside opinions drain his energy for the fresh start. The reactions of those close to him, however intense, were only the first test of many still to come on this new journey. It didn't take long for the first obstacles to appear in full force. Life outside the comfort zone brought challenges he never imagined. Money was tight, uncertainty was everywhere, and the fear of failure resurfaced during sleepless nights. With every problem, he had to remind himself why he'd made such a risky decision and resist the urge to turn back. The real world proved unforgiving. Doors he thought were open closed, opportunities disappeared, and even friendships faded away. He learned that, to conquer a new destiny, courage wasn't enough. Resilience was needed to overcome the weight of consequences every day. Still, he pushed forward, one step at a time, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. There were moments when he missed his old stability, almost like a trap. Lack of routine, mounting bills, and the absence of certainty created a perfect environment for doubt to grow. Even so, he resisted the impulse to give up, finding support in small victories and remembering the stories of resilience that always inspired him. To get through the tough times, he had to reinvent habits, learn new skills, and accept help from unexpected places. The hardships became lessons, and the stumbles revealed strengths he never knew he had. The biggest challenge was to keep believing that all real change goes through a turbulent phase before it truly blossoms. Amid the storms, he began to see signs of growth, more independence, greater self-knowledge, and a renewed faith in his own ability to start over. No matter how insurmountable the obstacles seemed, he now knew that every big decision brings both fear and the possibility of transformation. And this was just the start of the victories to come. After so many trials, the first signs of transformation started to show up subtly, almost unnoticed. Small daily victories, like learning something new or seizing an unexpected opportunity, slowly brought back the spark in his eyes. At last, he felt like he was writing a new story, this time with his own hands. What was once just fear and uncertainty now became pride for not having given up during the hardest times. The courage to make a risky choice was now seen as strength, no longer as foolishness. Self-confidence, once shaken, grew as each conquered challenge proved his ability to overcome and start again. His social circle changed, too. People inspired by his journey began to draw near, seeking advice or sharing similar experiences. He realized that by changing his own life, he was inspiring others to see their own possibilities for change. His destiny now seemed full of opportunities, and even past failures took on new meaning. The old monotonous and suffocating routine became full of purpose. He woke up motivated, finding meaning even in the simplest tasks. The daily challenge was no longer just to survive, but to grow a little each day, even in the face of ongoing difficulties. The internal transformation reflected in his actions, thoughts, and dreams. Looking back, he understood that every turning point comes with a price, but also with unimaginable rewards. The new path was still under construction, with its own stumbles and lessons, but with the certainty that giving up everything was, in fact, a gift to himself. It was the beginning of a new life, where each choice was finally made according to his own will. Now let me ask you, what dream have you been leaving behind because you fear the consequences? How many times have you thought about changing everything, only to hold back when facing the unknown? The truth is, no one promises an easy road, but only those who act discover what they're really capable of. Life is made of challenges, opportunities, and above all, choices. And what if you could make today that decision that would completely change your destiny? Share your experience in the comments, tell us about your biggest turning point, and inspire others. And of course, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you never miss a story of resilience and transformation. Here, every week is an invitation for you to reinvent yourself too.